the church where my late father, who was the founder of what is today King's Church International, grew up. It was here as an 8-year-old boy that he gave his life to the Lord. And this church building here, surrounded by the mountains, the green hills of South Wales, is a place where over the generations the presence of the Holy Spirit has been very real. Even to this day, the church is going on. My father said it was in this place, in this chapel, that he first got to know the presence of God. It was here as an 8-year-old boy that he remembered the pastor of the church saying, a man, silver-haired pastor, Sidney Mercy, and he said, is there anyone who wants to give their heart to the Lord tonight? And with my heart thumping, I raised my hand at the back. He said, thank God for that little boy over there. I felt like a millionaire when he said that. And as I went through the door, he ruffled my fair, wavy hair and said, God bless you. A week after that, his brother, Harold, who was 11, decided with some friends that they would go and climb the mountain behind me. As you see, it's a very, very steep mountain and an even steeper quarry. Why Harold decided to go on ahead of them, whether it was for dare or to see birds' nests, we don't know. What we do know is that a man who was walking below called up to him and said, I will tell your father about this. And he looked back, he lost his grip, and he fell literally hundreds of feet to the ground. He died of his injuries a day later. The family was shattered. The community were united in grief at this tragedy spoken about for many years. Just before the funeral in the house, 100 Christians gathered to support our family. My father could remember it well. Also, my grandparents years ago, when they told me about the presence of God at that time. And there was a message somebody gave in other tongues, and the interpretation was, the gap that has been created, I will fill with my glory. Encouraging as this message was, the family also faced real poverty and the Great Depression. From the age of 14 and for the next 6 years, Billy had to work long and dangerous hours, half a mile underground in the coal mines. Once a roof caved in right by him and he saw 2 miners crushed to death by hundreds of tons of coal. Yet for all the hardship, Billy's faith sustained him. He led him singing underground and saw God's provision above ground. On one memorable occasion, the founder of Crosskeys Church, Father Mercy, visited Billy's out-of-work dad in his garden allotments in nearby Oakdale. And he saw him looking downcast, and he said, he used to speak with a kind of mixture of King James English and Welsh, unique phraseology, and he said, what's the matter with thee? And my granddad, with other miners around, he said, well, my crops got the blight, which meant they were diseased. And Father Mercy says, dost thou believe God can heal the blight? And my grandfather maybe didn't have the faith, but he didn't like to disappoint a man of faith, so he very meekly said, well, I do. So he says, well, put thy hands up in the air, we're going to pray over this. So he said he stood there in these allotments looking like a scarecrow while Father Mercy prayed that God would heal the blight and he'd get his beans that year. And he said, although he was embarrassed and other miners were looking around, he said that year, that allotment was the only one that came up with a crop. And that is one of the stories of the faith dimension of those early Christians here in this area who are our spiritual ancestors. Experiences such as this greatly strengthened the family's faith. In 1934, his dad told Billy that he'd seen a vision of the globe and that what was happening in their lives in the little village of Oakdale would one day touch the world. At 20 years of age, Billy took a big step towards that dream. Pointing to the familiar green mountainsides of South Wales, one of which had claimed the life of his brother, he said, I'm going over those hills to preach the gospel in England. All these years later, I'm standing here having borne witness to the ministry that came from Billy Richards that has touched Slough and Windsor and many parts of the world. The gap that was created here on this mountain behind me nearly 90 years ago God is continuing to fill with His glory.